The cold metal cuffs snapped shut around Michael Carter's wrists with a loud click that echoed in the alley. The police officer, a tall white man with a buzz cut and a permanent scowl, yanked Michael forward so hard his shoulder twisted painfully. "You think you can walk around my streets like you own 'em?" the officer snarled, his breath hot and sour against Michael's ear. Michael kept his calm, his voice low. "Officer, you're making a huge mistake." "Oh, I doubt that," the cop said with a smirk. "I saw you hanging around that jewelry store for 15 minutes. I know your type, waiting for the right time to rob the place." Michael took a slow breath. He could feel the tension building in the air, like a storm about to break. "You have no idea who I am." "Oh, I know exactly what you are," the officer snapped. "Another punk trying to make trouble in my town." Michael's eyes locked on the officer's. They were steady, sharp, almost daring. Then he said the words that would change everything. "I'm a special agent with the FBI, and you're about to regret this." The officer froze for a fraction of a second, confusion flickering in his eyes before his arrogance returned. "Yeah, right. FBI? That's cute. You'll be telling me you're the president next." Michael didn't blink. "Check my badge. Back left pocket." The officer hesitated, then reached in, and his face turned pale as he pulled out a black leather wallet with a gold shield and Michael's identification. His grip on the cuffs loosened just slightly, but his voice stayed cold. "This doesn't change a thing," he said, though his tone wavered. But before he could react further, a second patrol car screeched into the alley, tires screaming. 2 more officers jumped out, guns drawn. Michael knew exactly what was coming next, and it wasn't going to end quietly. Just 12 hours earlier, Michael Carter was sipping black coffee in his kitchen, reading over a case file thick enough to stop a bullet. The morning sun streamed in through the blinds, striping the table with lines of light and shadow. He was off duty. Debout, or at least that was what he'd told his supervisor. Truth was, his mind never really switched off from the job. Michael was 34, tall, with broad shoulders and a calm presence that made people either trust him instantly or underestimate him entirely. That second mistake, underestimating him, was one criminals made all the time, and it never ended well for them. The file on the table was for Operation Iron Claw, an undercover sting targeting a network of dirty cops suspected of skimming cash from drug busts and framing innocent people. Michael wasn't assigned to the case directly, at least not on paper, but someone higher up had asked him to keep an eye on things, which in FBI speak meant get close enough to smell the rot but don't let anyone know you're there. He was supposed to spend the day keeping a low profile, blending into the crowd in a small downtown district where one of the suspects worked. That suspect, Officer Greg Maddox, the same man who would later slap cuffs on him in that alley. Greg Maddox had a reputation, not just for his aggressive policing, but for his blatant prejudice. Complaints had piled up over the years, unlawful searches, harassment, even excessive force. But somehow they always disappeared from the official record. By 10 a.m., Michael had parked himself across the street from a small jewelry store, pretending to browse his phone while keeping an eye on Maddox, who was parked in his patrol car nearby. Maddox wasn't alone. Another officer, younger and jumpy, sat in the passenger seat. At first, it was boring surveillance. Michael watched a delivery truck pull up, unload boxes, and drive away. He noted a woman entering the store, with a stroller. A homeless man shuffled past asking for change. Normal city life. Then Maddox's patrol car rolled forward slowly, like a shark circling prey. Michael stayed put, but he could feel Maddox's eyes on him. That was the moment things began to turn. 5 minutes later, Maddox got out, walked straight toward him, and began his routine questioning. That didn't feel routine at all. His tone was sharp, his eyes full of suspicion. Michael gave short, calm answers, but Maddox seemed determined to twist everything he said. "You from around here?" "Visiting." "Visiting who? No one in particular." "That's so. You just stand in front of jewelry stores for fun?" Michael didn't bite. "Just enjoying the morning." But Maddox wasn't buying it. He stepped closer, his voice dropping into a low growl. "I don't like strangers hanging around. Makes me nervous. You make me nervous." Michael could have shown his badge right there, but revealing his identity too soon could blow the entire undercover angle of Iron Claw. Instead, he played it cool, until Maddox suddenly grabbed his arm and twisted it behind his back. "You're under arrest for loitering with intent, Maddox." "The Halmend," Maddox said, his voice dripping with smug satisfaction. Michael knew loitering with intent wasn't an actual charge that would stick, but Maddox didn't seem concerned about the law. This was about dominance, about sending a message. He let himself be led toward the patrol car, calculating how much to push back without revealing who he was. But when Maddox shoved him against the hood hard enough to make his ribs ache, Michael decided it was time to speak up. That's when he told Maddox to check his back pocket. That's when Maddox's arrogance faltered, just for a second, before those backup units came screaming into the alley. The two new officers didn't ask questions. They leveled their guns at Michael, barking orders to get on the ground, even though he was already cuffed. Maddox looked at them, then at Michael, torn between maintaining his cover and acknowledging a mistake. But before anyone could say another word, the younger officer from Maddox's car shouted something that made the hair on Michael's neck stand up. "He's armed. He's reaching for something." Michael wasn't reaching for anything. His hands were cuffed behind his back. But the rookie's voice carried a note of panic. And in that split second, Michael knew exactly how dangerous this was about to get. Because one wrong move, and none of them would care that he was FBI. 3 gun barrels were pointed at Michael's chest, their cold steel glinting in the dim light of the alley. The rookie officer's shout still echoed in his ears. "He's armed!" And Michael could see Maddox's jaw tighten. The older cop didn't correct his partner. Michael's voice stayed steady, even though his pulse was pounding in his neck. "I am not reaching for anything. My hands are cuffed. You're making a dangerous mistake." "On your knees!" the rookie screamed, his voice cracking. "I said he's already cuffed," Maddox muttered, but his tone wasn't loud enough to make the others lower their weapons. He was playing both sides now, probably thinking about how this might look if it all went wrong. The other backup officer, a stocky man with a shaved head, stepped closer, gun still raised. "What's in your jacket pocket?" "My badge and ID," Michael said slowly. "Federal badge. You can check it if you want to avoid the biggest career mistake of your life." The shaved-head officer hesitated. That single pause told Michael this one wasn't fully sold on the rookie's panic. Maddox's eyes darted between them. He didn't want anyone else to check the ID. Michael could read him like a book. Maddox wanted control, and if someone else confirmed Michael's FBI status, the power he had over this situation would evaporate. "Miller, don't check anything," Maddox barked at the shaved-head officer. "We'll handle it." At the station. Michael took a slow breath. He was seconds away from being thrown in the back of a patrol car, guns aimed at him the entire way. He knew if he got to the station in cuffs under Maddox's watch, anything could happen. Evidence planted, reports rewritten, even accidents, as in holding cells. Then came the sound that changed the tension instantly. A sharp voice from the alley entrance. "Drop your weapons, now." All 3 uniformed officers froze. Standing there was a tall black woman in a dark suit, her badge held high. Her voice cut through the air like a knife. "FBI, Special Agent Dana Ruiz. That man is with me." The rookie looked confused, glancing at Maddox for direction. Maddox's face was stone, but his eyes burned with frustration. "Dana?" Michael said, letting out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Uncuff him, immediately," Roos ordered. For a few tense seconds, nobody moved. Maddox finally stepped forward, his jaw working, and unlocked the cuffs with a sharp twist. Michael rubbed his wrists, keeping his expression unreadable. "Agent Carter," Ruiz said firmly, "we need to talk. Now." The backup officers stepped away, looking uncertain. Maddox stayed silent, but his gaze followed Michael like a predator's. Ruiz guided Michael toward a black SUV parked nearby. Once inside, her voice dropped. "What the hell happened? You were supposed to observe, not get yourself arrested." Michael shook his head. "I didn't get myself arrested. Maddox targeted me. Pure harassment. He was itching for it." Ruiz's eyes narrowed. "And you let it happen?" "Had to," Michael said. "Now I know how far he's willing to go, and who's willing to back him up without asking questions." Ruiz exhaled through her nose. "You just put yourself on his radar. That's dangerous." Michael glanced out the tinted window, catching a glimpse of Maddox watching them from across the street. His mouth curled in a half-smile. "Yeah," Michael said softly. "That's the point." The rest of the day was quieter, at least on Teotz's surface. Ruiz insisted on running interference, making sure word of Michael's identity stayed contained to their team. But even off the clock, Michael could feel Maddox's shadow over him. That night, Michael walked to his car from a late meeting at the field office. The parking lot was almost empty, the streetlights casting long pools of yellow light. He had one hand on the door handle when a voice came from the darkness. "Nice badge you've got there, Agent." Michael turned slowly. Maddox was leaning against a black pickup truck, arms folded, eyes cold. "You're gonna wish you stayed out of my way," Maddox said. "This is my city. People like you don't belong here." Michael stepped closer, his voice quiet but razor-sharp. "People like me? You mean federal agents? Or black men?" Maddox smirked. "Both." For a moment neither man moved. The street was silent except for the distant hum of traffic. Then Maddox leaned in. "You think that badge protects you? Out here it doesn't mean a damn thing." Michael didn't break eye contact. "We'll see about that." Maddox gave a low chuckle and stepped back toward his truck. "You have no idea what you've just stepped into, Carter." Michael watched him drive away, the taillights disappearing into the dark. A cold knot formed in his gut, not from fear, but from certainty. Maddox was hiding something big, and now he knew Michael was coming for him. Michael didn't realize just how soon Maddox would make his next move. Because 2 hours later, a loud knock pounded at his apartment door, followed by the sound of it being kicked in. The door crashed inward with a splintering crack, the wood frame snapping like brittle bone. Michael was already moving, muscle memory taking over. He rolled off the couch and grabbed the pistol from the side table. "FBI, identify yourselves!" he shouted, leveling the weapon toward the shadowed door. "Chimwo." 3 figures stormed in. Black tactical gear, faces hidden behind balaclavas, weapons up. No police insignia, no badges, just men with guns. One of them fired without warning. The bullet punched into the wall inches from Michael's head, plaster dust exploding in the air. Michael dove behind the couch, returning fire. 2 precise shots that drove the intruders back toward the doorway. His mind was already racing. These weren't random home invaders. They moved with trained precision, covering angles and communicating with short, sharp hand signals. This was a hit. One of the masked men shouted, "Move! He's not supposed to walk away from this!" Michael's stomach turned cold. Whoever sent them didn't want him scared. They wanted him dead. The fight turned brutal and close. One attacker vaulted over the couch, swinging the butt of his rifle. Michael caught the strike on his forearm, pain shooting up to his shoulder, but he drove his elbow into the man's ribs and twisted his arm until the rifle clattered to the floor. The second man came at him from the side. Michael kicked the rifle away, grabbed the man's wrist, and used his momentum to slam him headfirst into the wall. The third man fired again. Michael hit the floor and rolled behind the kitchen counter, feeling the bullet tear into the cabinet above his head. He grabbed the second pistol he kept taped under the counter, popped up, and fired twice. The third man stumbled back with a cry, clutching his leg. Suddenly, the remaining two pulled the wounded one toward the doorway. "We're done! Fall back!" one barked. Michael started after them, but froze when the last man, before disappearing into the night, called back two chilling words. "Maddox says hi." The door slammed shut behind them. Michael stood there, chest heaving, gun still raised. He scanned the street outside, but they were gone, melted into the dark like ghosts. He locked the door, knowing it was pointless now. If they could come once, they could come again. He called Ruiz. "We need to meet, now." 30 minutes later, they were sitting in her car 2 blocks away, engine running, windows up. Michael told her everything, his voice clipped, precise. "They weren't just random muscle," he finished. "They were trained. Whoever Maddox is working with has serious resources." Ruiz's eyes were sharp in the dim glow of the dashboard. "You think this ties into Iron Claw?" "I don't think," Michael said. "I know." She gripped the steering wheel. "Then we've got a bigger problem. If Maddox knows you're FBI and he's willing to send a hit squad, he's not just dirty, he's desperate." Michael leaned back, trying to think 3 moves ahead. "We can use that." Ruiz frowned. "Use it how?" "We let him think I'm rattled. We let him think he scared me off. While he relaxes, we get inside his operation." "Michael, I'm not asking permission," he cut in. "We can't wait for internal affairs. This needs to be handled before he buries more evidence and more people." She stared at him for a long moment, then sighed. "Fine, but you're not doing it alone." They made their plan in the quiet hum of the car, mapping out how Michael would draw Maddox out, how they'd track his movements, and how to link him to his network without tipping him off. For the next 2 days, Michael played the part, keeping his head down in public, avoiding Maddox's gaze when they crossed paths downtown. Maddox bought the act. His smirk returned. His patrols got sloppier. He stopped shadowing Michael's every move. But on the third night, the trap started to close. Michael was tailing Maddox at a distance when the cop pulled into a rundown warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. The building was dark, windows boarded up, no sign of activity, except for the faint hum of a generator inside. Michael parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, keeping to the shadows. He crept to a side window, peering through a crack in the boards. What he saw made his blood run cold. Stacks of cash, thousands, maybe millions, were piled on a long table. Beside them, sealed plastic bags of white powder and a rack of unregistered firearms. And Maddox, standing at the center, shaking hands with a man Michael recognized instantly from a DEA watch list. Victor Vico Herrera, one of the biggest drug traffickers in the state. Michael pulled back from the window, heart pounding. This was it, proof that Maddox was deep in bed with organized crime. But before he could move, a voice came from right behind him. "Lose something, Agent Carter?" He turned slowly, straight into Maddox's grin. And Maddox had a gun pointed right at his head. The muzzle of Maddox's pistol gleamed under the flickering street lamp. Michael's training told him not to move, not to give Maddox a reason to pull the trigger. "Step away from the window," Maddox ordered, his voice calm but cold. "Hands where I can see them." Michael slowly raised his hands. "You really want to add murder of a federal agent to your list?" Maddox's grin widened. "See, that's the problem with you feds. You think that badge makes you untouchable. Out here, that badge is just a target." He motioned with the gun toward the alley beside the warehouse. Michael walked, keeping his pace steady, forcing his breathing to stay controlled. Maddox stayed behind him, close enough that Michael could feel the gun barrel brush his back. They reached a rusted metal door. Maddox banged on it twice. It opened to reveal two of the masked men from the apartment attack. Their eyes locked on Michael like hunters spotting wounded prey. "Well, look what we have here," one of them said, pulling a switchblade and flicking it open with a snap. "Inside," Maddox said. Michael stepped into the warehouse. The smell hit him first, a mix of gasoline, dust, and the sharp tang of uncut cocaine. The hum of the generator echoed in the cavernous news space, casting long shadows across the walls. Vico Herrera turned from the table stacked with cash and drugs, his gold chain swinging against his chest. His smile was slow and cruel. "So this is the Fed causing my friend all this trouble." Michael didn't answer. He let his eyes sweep the room, 6 men in total, all armed, exits limited to the door they'd come through, and a loading bay at the far end. "You know," Vico continued, "Maddox here has been good for business. Kept the streets quiet, kept the cops looking the other way. But you're a problem." Michael stayed silent. Every second he kept them talking was a second closer to finding a way out. Vico leaned on the table. "I think we should send a message. Let every other badge know what happens when they stick their nose in where it doesn't belong." Maddox stepped forward, pressing the gun harder against Michael's temple. "I can handle it." Michael's mind raced. If they moved him deeper inside the warehouse, his odds of escape dropped to near zero. His only chance was to create chaos now. "Vico," Michael said suddenly, his tone sharp, "you really trust Maddox? Because he's been feeding me information for weeks." The room went still. Vico's eyes narrowed. "What did you just say?" Michael tilted his head toward Maddox. "You think I found this place by accident? He told me everything, times, shipments, names. I've got it all recorded." It was a dangerous bluff, but Michael saw the spark of doubt ignite in Vico's face. Maddox's grip on the gun tightened. "He's lying," Maddox snapped. "He's trying to turn us against each other." Vico's gaze shifted between them, suspicion growing. "Maybe, or maybe you've been playing both sides." One of the masked men stepped closer to Maddox. "Boss, you want me to search him? If he's wired." That was Michael's opening. He stomped hard on Maddox's foot, twisting away from the gun as it fired, the shot blasting into a stack of crates. He lunged for the nearest table, grabbed a glass bottle, and smashed it into the face of the masked man with the switchblade. Chaos erupted. Guns came up, shouts filled the air, and Michael dove behind a pile of crates as bullets tore through the wood. He fired twice toward the loading bay, forcing 2 men to scatter. He spotted a ladder leading to a catwalk above the floor. Sprinting toward it, he climbed fast, ducking as rounds whizzed past his head. From the catwalk, he could see the entire warehouse layout: drug stacks, cash piles, and the armed men scrambling below. Michael pulled out his phone, hit a speed dial, and spoke fast. "Ruiz, it's Carter. Warehouse on Pier 14. Maddox and Herrera. Both here. Armed. Need backup now." A bullet shattered the railing inches from his hand. He dropped to the floor of the catwalk and crawled toward a set of stairs that led down to the loading bay exit. But as he reached the bottom, a shadow moved in front of him. Maddox, gun up, eyes wild. "This ends now, Carter." Michael's muscles tensed. He could hear sirens faintly in the distance, growing closer. "You hear that?" Michael said. "That's your time running out." Maddox's lip curled. "Not before I take you with me." He squeezed the trigger, just as the warehouse doors exploded inward with a deafening crash. Black-clad FBI SWAT agents poured in, shouting commands, weapons ready. The sudden flashbang grenade blinded and deafened everyone inside for a split second. When Michael's vision cleared, Maddox was gone, vanished into the chaos. Ruiz rushed to Michael's side, gripping his shoulder. "You okay?" "Yeah," Michael said, breathing hard. "But Maddox is not done. He's going to ground now, and when he comes back, he'll be more dangerous than ever." Ruiz's expression was grim. Then we find him before he finds you. But as they swept the warehouse, collecting evidence and cuffing Herrera's men, Michael spotted something on the floor near the crates. A small blood-stained envelope with his name, written across it in shaky handwriting. He bent down, picked it up, and opened it. Inside was a single photo. A photo of his sister, taken that afternoon. Michael's grip tightened on the photo until the edges crumpled. His sister, Andrea, was smiling in the picture, completely unaware that someone had been close enough to take it without her knowing. The timestamp printed at the bottom read, 3:47 p.m., just hours earlier. Ruiz saw the look on his face. "Michael, what is it?" He handed her the envelope. Her eyes flicked over the image, and her jaw set. "This is Maddox. He's telling you he can get to your family." Michael nodded slowly, his voice a low growl. "Then he's already made the biggest mistake of his life." The next 12 hours were a blur of movement. Michael had Andrea placed under FBI protective custody, her apartment cleared and swept for any signs of tracking devices. He didn't tell her the full truth, just that she was in danger and needed to stay with agents until it was over. Then, with Ruiz at his side, he began the hunt. Maddox had ditched his patrol car, his service weapon, and even his police ID. Every connection he had to his official life was severed. But Michael knew from the warehouse bust that Maddox had one weakness: pride. He liked to feel untouchable. That meant he wouldn't run far. Through phone pings, informants, and traffic cams, they tracked Maddox to an abandoned motel on the outskirts of town, a place once used by drug runners before it got shut down. By nightfall, they had eyes on the building, 4 heat signatures inside. Maddox was one of them. The FBI tactical team was ready to go in, but Michael stopped them. "He's mine," he said, loading a fresh magazine into his pistol. Ruiz grabbed his arm. "You're too close to this." "That's exactly why it has to be me," Michael said. "He needs to see my face when it ends." I breached the motel quietly, moving down the long, dark hallway. The smell of mildew and rotting carpet clung to the air. At room 12, Michael heard voices, low, tense. He pushed the door open in one swift motion. Maddox was sitting at the table, gun within reach, 3 of his masked men standing nearby. The moment they saw Michael, 2 grabbed their weapons. "Drop them!" Michael barked. One hesitated. Ruiz's team took him down with a single precise shot to the shoulder. The other man raised his hands and backed away. Now it was just Maddox and Michael, eyes locked. "You just don't quit, do you?" Maddox said, voice flat. "Not when you threaten my family," Michael replied. Maddox's fingers twitched toward his gun. Michael saw it coming before it happened. In one smooth motion he drew and fired, not to kill, but to hit Maddox square in the hand. The gun clattered to the floor, and Maddox clutched his bleeding fingers, swearing. Michael was on him in 2 steps, yanking him out of the chair and slamming him against the wall. "You think wearing a badge makes you a king?" Michael said, his voice low and sharp. "But you were just a thug with paperwork, and now you're nothing." Maddox tried to spit in his face, but Michael shoved him back harder. Ruiz came in, cuffs ready, snapping them onto Maddox's wrists with finality. "You're under arrest," she said, her voice hard. "Corruption, conspiracy, drug trafficking, attempted murder of a federal agent. Shall I keep going?" Maddox's sneer faltered for the first time. He knew it was over. They dragged him out of the motel, past the flashing red and blue lights. Herrera's men were already in custody, the warehouse evidence tying Maddox to every dirty deal for the last 5 years. By dawn, Maddox was in a federal holding cell. No badge, no gun, no power. Michael stood outside the interrogation room hours later, watching through the glass as Maddox sat hunched over the table, head in his hands. Ruiz stepped up beside him. "It's done. He'll spend the rest of his life behind bars." "Misha Dawes," IL didn't take his eyes off Maddox. Good. But we're not done. There are others like him. Ruiz gave a small nod. Then we'll find them. As they walked out of the building, Michael's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You got Maddox. Impressive. But he was just the beginning. Michael stopped, staring at the screen, because the message came with another photo. Andrea. This time she wasn't smiling, and she wasn't alone.